You are listening to the podcast of the Corvinus Collegium, the largest talent management institute in Hungary. If you want to know more about our mission, please look up our English website at mcc.hu/en or check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter channels. For interesting articles and analysis of our professors, external contributors, and students, look up our knowledge base at corvinus.hu/en.
I welcome everyone to our today's podcast. Our guest now is Mr. Frank Spengler, the external advisor of the German-Hungarian Institute. Mr. Spengler, as I know, you have worked 40 years at the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation, at the German political foundation of the Christian Democratic Union. I would like to ask you, how did your journey start at the field of international cooperation, and which were your stations and focuses throughout these 40 years?
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity to talk to you today about a very important subject, development cooperation worldwide, and in particular about the work of the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung. The Konrad-Adenauer Foundation or Stiftung is a German organization, a political foundation to establish in the 60s to promote not only development cooperation, but also democracy, human rights, in particular, all these basic values the Christian Democrats stand for worldwide. When we look back, I started in 1st of January 81, the global situation was completely different. We were in the middle of the Cold War. There was an aspiring African continent where we had a lot of freedom movements and so on and so on. So it was far more difficult to operate as a political organization in our partner continents, Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And therefore, we were in the beginning more what we call integrated experts. So we had no own offices and no own projects, but we were integrated in partner organizations and assisted them to promote democracy within their space. Only later on, when we had more opportunities to operate, then we could establish our own offices, our own projects, and so on. So in the beginning, and that was my, must say, privilege to work as an integrated expert in Africa. I was part of a team, and I was fully integrated in their lifestyle, their work, and I benefited a lot. I learned a lot, and I think this was a good start for a career in development cooperation. And my stations are very simple. I worked 15 years in Africa, in East Africa, then moved to Zimbabwe, then to South Africa. I was part of the transitional process from apartheid towards a democratic system. Later on, I was working in the head office, responsible for Europe and Japan. Then I moved to Eastern Europe, to Turkey, back to Berlin, and finally, as a highlight, so to speak, could finalize my working period here in Hungary, where I stayed for 8 years.
And what were the most difficult subjects in Africa you were dealing with?
In development cooperation, we always have to look at the circumstances, at the framework conditions. In some countries, it was easier. In other countries, they were overburdened by history, by climate problems, and so on and so on. So the difficulty was to convince people, especially in the Cold War, that market orientation, democracy is the future, and not so much a socialist experiments and a policy neglecting the needs of the people. We had quite a difference between the elite and the common citizen. I mean, the elite lived to a large extent a secure life, more or less the lifestyle of Western countries, but people were suffering. There were a lot of internal conflicts, civil war, which had an effect then on famines and so on and so on. So the overall political situation was not in favor of development.
And how do you see at all Germany's role in development cooperation? And also the other political foundation, are they also doing that much in this field?
First of all, I'm very proud that Germany is very strong in development cooperation. It's one of the leading countries worldwide in promoting not only democracy, but the economic development, and we secure a good political climate for Germany, and so on and so on. So from the beginning, most probably from our historical experience, we felt that we have to give something back to these countries, because we got a lot of support after the war, especially from the United States of America, and we valued this support very much. Not only the material support, but also that they introduced democracy to us, that they help with educational programs, and that, I must say, was very successful. I'm proud that Germany is one of the most stable democracies worldwide. So from this background, we felt that we have to give something back to developing countries, and I think this is the biggest advantage of Germany, that we have a worldwide network of partners, reliable partners, and we see a lot of success, especially in regard to the building of democracy, protecting of human rights in some of our partner countries.
And how do you see, in which aspect of development cooperation are there deficits? Let's say not in Germany's role, but at international level.
Development cooperation is a big variety of objectives. Some countries support partner continents or countries because of economic interests, others because of political influence, others because there have been colonial powers before, and so on. So there are various ideas and principles. We are now coming to a point where, for example, the climate question becomes more and more important, because we realize that is a global challenge, not so much a regional or continental challenge. So I think we should more focus on these issues where we have a win-win situation, receiving countries and partner countries. And for some time, we are falling back into the old patterns of conflict, and we must be careful that we are not seeing the world again polarized by 2 or 3 powers and becoming part of that global game. And Germany is in between, because we have a lot of good experience with development cooperation. We have good partners worldwide, and we're trying to organize a network of aspiring young democracies supported by us. And I think this is our big advantage. We have a lot of soft power. We don't have the hard power, but we have a lot of soft power because of our work in the past.
And how would you evaluate Hungary's role in development cooperation?
Hungary, I think, had a restart in '89, not only internally, but also externally. The old traditional trading partners and so on had to change. And it took some time before Hungary had the material component to start its own development programs. And I believe Hungary was very correct in focusing on certain areas, on certain countries, and certain aspects of development cooperation to assist, to supplement other activities. And Hungary concentrated primarily on the support of Christian minorities under pressure worldwide, which I think is a very important fact. And now they're starting to move more into, let's say, traditional development cooperation in a traditional form, which means to support the framework conditions of development, and also trying to secure certain interests in certain countries like raw material and so on. So I believe there's a lot still to do, but it has a very good start. It was concentrating on the right subjects. And my personal wish is that more young people should get involved, because it's a task of generations. And the younger the people in this field, the better it will be in the long run to maintain these good relations.
If we speak about promoting democracy, human rights, and dealing with climate change or economic development, we can also turn to the question, what about the Western Balkans integration into the European Union? I think it's also a very actual question. How do you see the German political foundation's role, if they have any, in this process?
I think all political foundations were from the beginning very active in this part of the world, because we believe that we can only live in peace in Europe, because Europe is a peace project and firsthand, and we see it again today, how important peace became again on our continent. It's a peace project, and we realized that there was some deficit in these countries. And all foundations became quite active in promoting their political partners in the political competition. We believe that if you have political stability, then it's much easier to develop economically. And therefore, we try to promote through our partners democracy, human rights, which then will enable foreign investors to come to the country, because obviously an investor's interested in a stable political system, in the rule of law, in other issues before they start to invest in a large scale manner. So I think the work is still important, very important, and we should even increase our activities, which we are doing, and we're trying to coordinate the activities, cross-border projects, which might help to overcome national problems in these areas.
And if we are at the question European enlargement, how do you see Turkey's situation and Turkey's role connecting the future of Europe?
If I would start to talk on this subject, it might take another couple of days. I had the privilege to work in Turkey 2004 to 2006, where there were a very strong move towards the European Union. I believe the most important aspect is to assist Turkey in the reform program. And the Maastricht criteria are very important for us, but even more important for the aspiring countries like Turkey. And we should do everything in which framework ever to support these reforms. And they need our assistance in many areas like technology and so on and so, but also in areas of foreign affairs and security. Turkey is a reliable partner in NATO, a very important player in the region, as we can see every day. And whatever we have in the long run as a plan for Turkey, at the moment, we have to concentrate on reforms which we can assist so that Turkey becomes a reliable partner for Europe in whatever form that will be decided not only by the European Union, but also by the Turks themselves, because they have various options and they will, at the end of the day, will decide by themselves.
You mentioned your wish is to involve more young people in development cooperation. What would be your message to the younger generation? What could be a motivation for them to start this involvement process, to start working at the foundation like you at the Konrad-Adenauer Foundation?
I believe that the mindset will change once you worked in a partner country. You can read and learn as much as you like, but being in a partner country makes a difference. Now, we sometimes think of sending bilaterally people to these countries, but I believe we can do more together in Europe. We can take a young Hungarian and a young German and invite them to work in Ghana for a year, for example. That will help the internal process in Europe know each other better, and will help then a third part developing. That was my project, which I was not 100% successful. I tried to bring the youth organizations, sending people abroad from Hungary and Germany together so that they have joint programs. I think that is the future, that we should concentrate more on European programs, bring young people to our partner countries, and then establish long-term relations. So it should not be a one-off, but once you are in a country, then you establish friendly links to people and friendships, and that might last a lifelong. And therefore, we must also develop a few instruments so that we can continuously support such activities. For myself, I was one of the first students who went to France on a French-German exchange program, and I'm still visiting my friend. So the same I hope we can establish with these countries in Africa in particular, or in Asia and in Latin America, that we bring people, mixing the people, bringing people together makes a difference. And the younger the people are, the better is the investment. It's normal, and you don't have so many prejudices as a young person, and you're more open maybe to a dialogue. So concentrate on young people, invest in mixing the people. That's the best insurance for a peaceful world.
I would like to ask one more personal question, if you don't mind. What was your favorite station throughout your career?
This question doesn't surprise me because I was very often asked. Now, I must say I was lucky that I always had the correct project in my period of life. When I was young, I worked in Africa, which was some burden which I might not accept anymore in the age of 50 or 60. So when I was young, I was in Africa. Then I moved to Europe, and the subjects changed, but also the living conditions changed. So I was always at the right time, at the right place in my lifetime. And I think this is the correct way. One should always plan a little bit a career. And I was privileged that I could start in Africa and then use this knowledge in other countries. And so I was always at the right time, at the right place.
Thank you very much. And thank you for coming. And we hope we can speak more about Turkey or about other questions next time.
Next time I'm ready, but let me again motivate everybody who has a chance to go abroad and in projects or even as a tourist, and with open eyes and with respect. I think this is very important. And then I think we can make a difference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to this MCC Podcast episode. For further media content, please look up our English website at mcc.hu/en or look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to read more by our professors, external contributors, and students, check out our knowledge base at corvinus.hu/en.